For decades, African nations have stored billions of dollars worth of gold in foreign vaults, believing it was safe in the hands of the West. But now, a shocking turn of events has sparked a massive financial standoff. After US President Donald Trump cut aid to several African countries, leaders across the continent are demanding the return of their gold reserves from the United States. The big question is, will the US give it back? Or is this another case of Africa being robbed in broad daylight? This isn't just about gold. It's about sovereignty, power, and breaking free from economic chains that have kept Africa dependent for far too long. For years, African nations have been told that keeping their gold in US vaults was a security measure. But after Trump's abrupt aid cuts, leaders are waking up to a harsh reality. Their wealth is not in their hands. With rising fears of economic instability, countries like Ghana, Nigeria, and South Africa are making bold moves to reclaim what's rightfully theirs. But history tells us that getting gold back from the West is no easy task. When Germany asked the US to return its gold in 2013, it took 7 years to get just a portion of it back. And now, African leaders are facing the same battle. Only this time, they're standing together in defiance, ready to challenge a global system that has long exploited their resources. What happens if the US refuses? Will this push Africa further towards alliances with BRICS nations like China and Russia? Could this be the beginning of a financial revolution that shakes the entire world economy? Stick around, because in this video we're diving deep into the real story behind Africa's fight to reclaim its gold, and why the West might not be so willing to give it back. Let's get into it. While this may seem surprising, it's actually a common global practice, not just for Africa. Countries strategically store their gold abroad as an economic and security measure to protect their wealth from political instability, theft, or economic crises. This practice isn't unique to Africa. Some of the world's most powerful economies, including Germany, Italy, Switzerland, India, the Netherlands, Portugal, Austria, Poland, and Belgium, also hold a significant portion of their gold reserves in foreign vaults. Take Germany, for example. It stores around $80 billion worth of gold, primarily in the United States, a decision rooted in post-World War II fears of Soviet aggression. Similarly, Italy keeps over half of its $67 billion gold reserves abroad, mostly in the US, a decision driven by historical security concerns. During the war, many nations transferred their gold overseas to prevent it from falling into enemy hands. For decades, governments have relied on external storage facilities to ensure the safety of their gold, either due to inadequate secure facilities at home or the logistical risks and costs of moving such valuable assets. The US, in particular, has long been regarded as one of the safest places for gold storage, housing a staggering 8,113 tons, the largest gold reserve in the world. However, nearly 90% of this gold actually belongs to other countries, a testament to the trust placed in American vaults. But that trust is starting to fade. In a significant shift, African nations, alongside countries in the Middle East, are now moving to reclaim their gold reserves from the US. South Africa, Nigeria, Cameroon, Ghana, and Egypt have begun repatriating their gold, a move that signals a broader desire for economic sovereignty and financial independence. The process of bringing gold reserves back home, known as gold repatriation, reflects a growing awareness among nations that control over their natural wealth is crucial for long-term economic stability. Leading this movement, Ghana, Nigeria, and Tanzania have taken decisive steps to reclaim their gold, recognizing the strategic benefits of holding these reserves within their own borders. By doing so, they aim to strengthen their financial security, reduce reliance on foreign financial institutions, and ensure that the wealth derived from their resources benefits their own economies directly. This isn't just about financial management. It's a statement of independence, a step toward reshaping Africa's economic future, freed from the constraints of external influences. But why now? If the US has been a trusted guardian of gold for decades, what's driving these countries to take back their reserves? In Ghana's case, repatriating gold is a proactive move to safeguard its financial future. With increasing global economic uncertainties and mounting concerns about the stability of the US financial system, Ghana sees this as a necessary step to protect its wealth. Economic experts, including Dr. Joseph Atta-Mensah, a specialist in international finance, argue that withdrawing gold from American vaults is a prudent decision in the face of potential economic volatility. As more African nations follow suit, this shift could mark the beginning of a new era, one where Africa takes full control of its economic destiny, reclaiming not just its resources, but its financial power on the global stage. Recent geopolitical shifts and economic uncertainties have led many nations to reconsider their gold storage strategies. As countries strive to assert greater financial sovereignty and reduce reliance on foreign institutions, repatriating gold reserves has become a crucial component of their national economic policies. This shift reflects a broader movement towards economic independence, resilience, and self-sufficiency in a world fraught with instability. Nigeria, for example, has taken a bold stance by banning gold exports, a decision driven by concerns over the declining US economy, as reported by the Media State Journal. This move is not just about economic security, it's a statement of sovereignty. By keeping its gold reserves within its borders, Nigeria aims to demonstrate its ability to manage its financial resources without external interference, signaling a break from traditional reliance on Western financial institutions. This growing skepticism towards the American economy is not unique to Nigeria. Many countries are beginning to question the stability of the US financial system. As inflation remains high, national debt continues to soar, and doubts emerge about the Federal Reserve's ability to maintain monetary stability. Geopolitical tensions and the unpredictability of global trade relations have further fueled concerns, prompting nations to take decisive action to protect their wealth and future economic security. For African countries, bringing their gold reserves home is both an economic safeguard and a strategic necessity. While the world moved away from the gold standard decades ago, gold remains a critical financial asset, acting as a hedge against currency fluctuations, inflation, and global crises. By reclaiming their reserves, these nations are not just protecting their financial stability, but also ensuring that their wealth remains under their own control, rather than being at the mercy of foreign powers. The actions of Western countries in recent years have only reinforced this urgency. In 2022, the US froze Russia's foreign reserves in response to its invasion of Ukraine, effectively cutting the country off from its own wealth. This unprecedented move sent a strong message to the rest of the world. Foreign-held reserves, even in supposedly stable Western banks, are not immune to political decisions. Many nations quickly realized that if this could happen to Russia, it could happen to them. Since 2020, there has been a noticeable surge in gold repatriation, particularly among countries that had traditionally stored their reserves in the US, UK, and France. A 2023 report confirmed that the sanctions on Russia accelerated this trend. Jonathan Ard, President and CEO of Dakota Gold Corp., noted that global gold reserves are shifting from the west to the east, as nations opt for domestic storage to safeguard against potential foreign confiscation. Add your voice to the total liberation of Africa by leaving a comment in the comments section below. Do not forget to like and subscribe for more informative videos like this one. Let's proceed. Another powerful force behind this shift is BRICS, led by China and Russia. The bloc has been actively pushing for de-dollarization and a multipolar world order, encouraging countries, especially those in the global south, to use local currencies for trade instead of the US dollar. A recent agreement between China and Russia to conduct $260 billion in trade without using the dollar exemplifies this strategy. BRICS is also developing its own currency, likely backed by gold, as evidenced by the surge in gold purchases by member nations since 2023. Given this changing global financial landscape, it is no surprise that African nations, including Nigeria, are taking decisive steps to reclaim their gold. However, the question remains, will they be successful in bringing all of their reserves home? The trend of gold repatriation is not new. European countries have been doing it for years. In 2013, Germany's central bank announced plans to retrieve 300 tons of gold from the US and 374 tons from France by 2020. Other nations, such as the Netherlands, France, Belgium, and Austria, have also repatriated their reserves in recent years. Africa's decision to follow suit marks a significant turning point. If successful, it could reshape the continent's economic landscape, reducing dependence on Western financial systems and strengthening its bargaining power on the global stage. The future of gold repatriation is still unfolding, but one thing is clear: nations are no longer willing to entrust their wealth to foreign hands without question. Captain Ibrahim Traore's actions in Burkina Faso, along with those of other African leaders, signal a growing determination to reclaim control over the continent's natural resources. This bold shift has the potential to reshape economic agreements in favor of African nations, reducing reliance on foreign aid and fostering sustainable development. As the world closely observes these developments, the long-term effects on the global gold market and the economic trajectories of these countries will become increasingly clear. Meanwhile, European nations such as Austria, Poland, and Romania have also begun repatriating their gold reserves. Austria, for instance, has announced plans to retain 50% of its gold, valued at 7.5 billion euros, within its borders. However, this movement raises a critical question. Can countries truly retrieve their gold from the United States? Germany's experience in 2013 provides a cautionary tale. When German officials requested to inspect their gold reserves stored at the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, they were reportedly denied access. This refusal sparked widespread speculation that the US had either sold the gold, leased it out, or perhaps never had it in the first place. When Germany formally requested the return of its gold, the US informed them that the process would take 7 years. By 2017, Germany announced that it had successfully repatriated half of its gold reserves, but the prolonged timeline only deepened suspicions. Some analysts believe that the delay occurred because the US had to discreetly reacquire the gold before returning it, an allegation that remains unproven but continues to fuel debate. Given this precedent, African nations seeking to reclaim their gold may face significant resistance from the United States. Washington is unlikely to make the process easy, particularly as more nations assert financial sovereignty and move away from dependency on Western financial institutions. The ongoing wave of gold repatriation among African countries marks a decisive shift toward economic self-determination. By bringing their gold reserves home, these nations are not just securing their assets. They are taking a powerful stand against decades of foreign exploitation and economic control. This movement has the potential to strengthen national economies, enhance financial stability, and lay the groundwork for long-term sustainable development. As more African countries embrace this path, the continent moves closer to a future where its wealth is managed for the benefit of its own people, rather than being held in foreign vaults. This moment represents a critical turning point, one that could redefine Africa's place in the global economy and signal the rise of a truly sovereign and self-reliant continent. While all these is going on, Captain Ibrahim Traore of Burkina Faso, along with other Sahelian leaders, is spearheading a bold initiative to create a new currency to replace the CFA franc, a colonial-era currency still controlled by France. This move signals a major shift in the economic landscape of West Africa, as countries seek to break free from financial dependency on their former colonial ruler. The CFA franc, which has long been pegged to the euro and is regulated by the French Treasury, has been a tool of economic control that has stifled true financial sovereignty for African nations. Traore and his allies believe that by introducing their own currency, they can regain economic independence, foster regional trade, and ensure that their financial policies align with the interests of their people rather than those of Paris. The plan to introduce a new currency comes amid broader geopolitical changes in the Sahel region. In recent months, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, three nations led by military governments, have announced their decision to withdraw from the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS. This departure is fueled by growing discontent with ECOWAS, which they accuse of being heavily influenced by Western interests, particularly France. ECOWAS' failure to adequately support these nations in their fight against terrorism, coupled with its swift imposition of sanctions following recent coups, has deepened the rift. By exiting ECOWAS, these countries aim to form a new regional alliance that prioritizes their own security and economic stability without external interference. At the heart of this economic transformation is a rejection of the CFA franc, which has been used by France to exploit its former African colonies for decades. The currency, initially introduced in 1945, was designed to keep African economies dependent on the French financial system. To this day, the CFA requires member states to deposit half of their foreign exchange reserves into the French treasury, effectively giving France control over their financial policies. This arrangement has severely limited economic growth in these nations, as they are unable to print their own money or implement independent monetary policies. Moreover, the CFA franc's fixed exchange rate with the euro makes exports from these countries less competitive on the global market, further entrenching economic stagnation. By creating a new currency, Sahel leaders are challenging centuries of financial dominance and opening the door for a more self-sufficient African economy. The move also aligns with broader efforts by BRICS nations, led by China and Russia, to promote de-dollarization and establish alternative financial systems. If successful, this shift could inspire other West African nations still using the CFA to rethink their economic ties with France and push for greater control over their financial futures. However, the road ahead is not without challenges. France, which has historically relied on African resources and financial control to sustain its economic power, is unlikely to let go without resistance. The introduction of a new currency could provoke economic and diplomatic retaliation, including efforts to destabilize the new system through political pressure or covert influence. Additionally, ensuring that the new currency is stable, trusted, and widely accepted in global markets will require careful planning and strategic partnerships. Despite these hurdles, the determination of leaders like Ibrahim Traore, Assimi Goïta of Mali, and Abdourahmane Tiani of Niger suggests that the region is ready for a new era. If their plan succeeds, it will mark the end of an exploitative system that has hindered Africa's economic progress for far too long. More importantly, it will serve as a powerful symbol of Africa's growing resistance to neocolonial control and its determination to chart its own economic destiny. In recent years, African leaders have become increasingly vocal about reclaiming their economic independence, and one of the most significant steps in this movement has been the demand for the return of their gold reserves stored in the United States. This push for financial sovereignty gained momentum after US President Donald Trump cut aid to several African nations, exposing the vulnerabilities of relying on foreign powers for economic stability. With these aid cuts serving as a wake-up call, African leaders have realized that true independence requires control over their own wealth, starting with their gold reserves. The call to repatriate gold is not just about retrieving physical assets. It is about reclaiming control over national economies. With gold prices surging globally and the US dollar's dominance being challenged by emerging economies, African nations recognize the strategic importance of holding their reserves domestically. As more African countries seek to trade in their own currencies and diversify their economic partnerships, the return of gold reserves becomes an essential step in breaking free from economic neo-colonialism. Ultimately, the demand for gold repatriation represents more than just a financial decision. It is a declaration of independence. African leaders are sending a clear message. Africa's wealth belongs to Africa. The days of relying on foreign aid and keeping national treasures in foreign vaults are coming to an end. While challenges lie ahead, this movement is a crucial step towards economic self-determination, ensuring that future generations of Africans will benefit from their continent's vast resources. So, what do you think? Will the US return Africa's gold without resistance, or will this turn into a major geopolitical battle? And what does this mean for the future of African economies? Tell us what you think in the comments section below. We explore the rich history, culture, and the ongoing struggle for sovereignty in Africa. Join us in this important conversation by subscribing to our channel. By subscribing, you're not just staying informed, you're becoming part of a movement dedicated to reclaiming Africa's rightful place on the global stage. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. Let's work together to spread knowledge and inspire change. Thanks for watching.